welcome to Grit with Wisdom. This is the podcast that delves deep into the inner psyche of mountain bikers from all aspects of our sport in order to discover the tools and the tactics that can help us have more fun out on the trails more often. Our aim here is to help you understand what it takes to push our own personal boundaries in the sport we love from a mental and emotional perspective. Hello everyone, we are back today with a brand new season of the podcast, and to celebrate our third year run-in, we have an extra special guest. Today I'm lucky enough to sit down with 𝗬𝗺𝗃 local legend 𝗳𝗃𝗃𝗵. Greg has a rich history in the sport of mountain biking. Growing up racing XC bikes and going on to compete in hundreds of races, he went on to become the overall champion of the BC bike race, not just once, but 3 times. As a guy that gets things done, Greg is also a former school teacher and a competitive skier. These days, he's busy running his own business, Daytime Cycling here in 𝗬𝗺𝗃, who offer a spin class like no other, and also a full-service mountain bike maintenance shop and retail shop. Known locally for his inspiring race day stories and his ability to get the best out of people, whether it's an athlete or the everyday enthusiast, Greg has launched a brand new mountain bike race here in 𝗬𝗺𝗃 called the Haulback, and I'm very excited to learn more about it today. Greg, welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, thanks,
Great to have you here.
Pumped to be here. What a spot. I love it.
Beautiful spot to be hanging out.
Yeah, this is great.
How was that intro there? Did I miss anything you wanted to add?
No, I don't know. It makes me feel, it makes me feel welcome. Makes me feel good. Yeah.
Fantastic, dude. I'm glad to hear that. How are you doing today? You competed in a race over the weekend?
Yeah, I'm good. Honestly, I'm a little sore. It's like I haven't been bike racing, and I was like, oh, I think I want to get the bug a little bit. Now, we're putting on our race. I'm looking forward to talking about that. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do some races. And I went and did the 𝗬𝗃𝗃𝗃 40, which is kind of like a cool format. There's like 3-stage, it's a 3-stage cross country race, which I think is really neat. And they're kind of like three single races or 3 toonie races, but like really, really hard. And I'm been blasted the last 2 days. Yeah, I think I was in my mind, I was believing I was still like a full-on bike racer, and I went way too hard and trying to hang at the front with the guys I shouldn't be hanging with, and I just paid the price. And but yeah, it was still fun, super fun. I clipped a tree at the end on the last stage, and it just augured my hip and took the wind out of my sails. But I finished. I didn't crash. My bike didn't break. So yeah.
That's fantastic, dude. Could I just forget the done?
Oh my God. Yeah. Bike racing is kind of like a serious reminder of how hard bike racing is.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, totally.
That's awesome. Why don't we wind the clock back a little bit here for those that don't know you?
Okay.
I'd love you to tell us a little bit just about like who you are, where you grew up, and perhaps when bikes first came into your life.
Yeah, totally. I don't know, you had a nice intro for me there, but I've been I guess a unique upbringing, because I always like to say that I was born and raised in the sea to sky, but I went to school in the city. So we were a family that would travel to 𝗬𝗃𝗃𝗃. We had a family cabin, and we went there every weekend to ski. And, my parents were teachers, so we spent all the summers and spring break and all our time in 𝗬𝗃, all our spare time. And I grew up as a competitive ski racer, like an alpine ski racer, and for skiing for 𝗬𝗃 Mountain Ski Club. And that just kind of was a really great way to grow up. And really, if you know anything about ski racing, it's a really competitive and technical sport. And that's actually how I got introduced into biking, because in the summer we'd have our ski camps. So we'd be on the glacier in the morning. So we'd ski from like 7 to noon, and then we'd download, and then we go mountain biking. So I think when I was maybe 11 or 12, I always biked a little bit just around 𝗬𝗃, but then I actually started getting into it and like riding trails and doing the toonie races in 𝗬𝗃. Well, actually they were loony races back then.
Right. Yeah.
You'd show up, the glory days, I'm sure, but you'd show up and you'd literally like put your loonie in the bottle, and then if you won your category, you got all the loonies.
Oh, that's super cool.
Yeah, so good. So that was my intro to kind of mountain biking. And then
so you got into mountain biking as kind of something to do when you went skiing.
Totally. Yeah, for sure. And then I caught the bug, as most people do, and then I was trying to do when I was maybe like 16, 17, I was trying to do both at like a kind of like a decent level. And it was getting to be like, you know, you get to that age where you're kind of just crazy to think, you know, you're 16 or 17 having to make a choice on a sport.
Yeah.
But I don't know, that's kind of the way it was then. And so it was like, yeah, I needed to, if I wanted to focus on one sport, I needed to, yeah, just kind of drop the other. So I decided to go with mountain biking. And
Wow. Was that a tough decision?
yeah, you know, looking back, I think it was, but at the time, I don't think it was, because I just skied my whole life. And it's, you know, anyone that grows up as a ski racer, it's like, well, number one, it's a massive time investment. It's a massive financial investment. Like it's like a really expensive sport. So, I always remember thinking of that with my parents. You know, they spent a lot of money on it, and I was like, I felt really fortunate. But I'd just done it for so long, I was kind of like, I didn't really miss it. And then when I stopped, I worked for the ski club, so I coached ski racing on the weekends. So I was kind of still had my fingers in ski racing a little bit. But yeah, and that's kind of how I got onto bike racing.
Fantastic. So, and straight kind of into the competitive world of bike racing as well, by the sounds of it.
Yeah. Like I was already doing some bike racing. You know, like Whistler was there was such a great opportunity to race. There still is, but you know, we had every single Thursday there was a loony race, and then Worka back then, it's changed a little bit, but they had a really cool like junior athlete program. So they had a coach for us, and that all the like local BC Cups and Canada Cups, they'd hire a van and they'd take all the kids. So we got taken to these races from Worka.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really cool. Really, really cool. And then from there, you know, just lots of other opportunities came up.
That's fantastic, man. So cool to hear that backstory, and so cool just to see the passion on your face as you relive those days, and too to know that it hasn't gone away. You just did a race in Whistler on the weekend. I'm curious, from your perspective, what is it that keeps you so passionate and motivated?
Well, I think I have a little bit of a fitness addiction. I love the way it makes me feel.
Right.
So there's a little bit of that. Like I feel like a little bit of a golden retriever, a dog that just needs to keep moving, right? If I don't get exercise, I go kind of squirrely. So there's a little bit of that. I do really like the way, you know, like getting my heart rate makes me feel. I get my heart rate up, I should say. But I don't know. I think I just was always a competitive kid. I'm sure it was a nightmare in gym class, right? But yeah, I just always really enjoyed competition, and then I really found out later, like as I got older and like progressed and was, you know, racing more like as an adult, like I really started to enjoy the process of like the training process that would take you to racing, like periodization and following a plan and like peaks and valleys and like the build up. I don't know, it was really really exciting to me. So
that's super cool. Yeah, all those positive aspects, all those feel good aspects.
Yeah, totally.
Curious, you use the word addiction there. Like there's so much good that comes from mountain biking and racing.
Yep.
Has there been any like downsides to like this almost obsession that we both have for the sport?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe ask my wife, but
not for you.
Yeah, no, for me, no, it's good. It's like it's literally my like riding bikes is totally my life, and like it's so much so that I've done like a really hard left-hand turn in life here. Like, you know, leaving. Like I've been a school teacher.
Yeah.
Or I guess I still, I like to say I'm a recovering school teacher, but I know I'm still a school teacher.
Well, you mentioned that you were a nightmare in gym class. Yeah, I'm curious, did that go full circle?
Totally. Well, it was funny. I taught gym. I taught gym and math in Squamish here, but I'm like biking. I love it so much, and I love racing, and I love watching racing, and I love bikes and love riding bikes, and I just needed a bit of a change in my career, and so I decided to leave teaching and open up a bike shop, which, you know, wasn't a small decision.
No, it takes so much courage, I think, especially getting into a space where we're in Squamish. There's already quite a few bike shops.
Totally, yeah. It was a big decision, but I don't know. It's a big part of my life, and now I get to like live it even more, which is
the
great.
dream. Good on you for making that leap, man. It's so inspiring. Let's get straight into it. Let's talk about the Haulback.
Okay. Yeah.
What is the Haulback for those that haven't heard of it yet?
Yeah. So the Haulback is a new mountain bike race in Squamish. It's happening in just under 2 weeks, so June 22nd. And it's a marathon point-to-point cross-country mountain bike race with a timed descent in it. So it's definitely been a bit of a I don't know if I want to say dream, but a bit of an idea of wanting to put on a race and have a race. Like, we're like Squamish and Whistler and like Pemberton is like so rich with like opportunity for people to race. And, COVID obviously like stopped all racing entirely.
Mm-hmm.
And over the last few years, we've kind of seen lots of events come back to town. But what we haven't seen come back to town is a cross-country mountain bike race.
Yes.
And, that's my love. Like I love all kinds of riding bikes and racing bikes and I watch it all and I follow it all. But like cross-country racing is like really special to me. And, talking to a few people and like there's a little bit, everyone's like, oh, it'd be great if there was a race. And it's just a matter of like someone stepping up to do it. So anyways, backing up like the history of racing in Squamish, like we had the 𝗬𝗏, which, anyone who's been around for a little while in town has heard of it. Like it went on for 20 something years. Like I did my first 𝗬𝗏 when I was 13. And I think I did the last 𝗬𝗏 when I was probably 34.
Wow.
So long, like, there's a lot
11 years.
Oh
wow.
my God. And it was just Canada's biggest race and, just did so much good for the community. And and then lots of other races happened in our community because of the 𝗬𝗏. And
yes.
So COVID happened and then no more racing. So it was just a matter of like, okay, let's do this. And a good friend of mine, Terry Evans, so he used to put on a race in Pemberton called the 𝗵𝗵𝐵 50.
Okay. Yeah.
Which was a really successful race. They had 10 years of success. And it was a race that I did. I don't know if I did all 10 years, but I did most of it.
Wow.
And it was a really fun race. It was really hard, super technical. And anyways, it was getting sidetracked. But yeah, Terry said, yeah, I'll run this with you. And so that was the little like kind of kick in the butt that I needed with his like experience doing it. I've put on some high school mountain bike races, but nothing like this.
Yeah, that's so cool to hear. I was going to ask you, like, where does one start? Like, you want to create a race? How do you?
Yeah, believe it or not, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, I can believe it. Trust me.
Yeah, totally. It's kind of like I gotta like really think of it like running a business a little bit. Like I've vastly underestimated how much work it's going to be. But thankfully, I got
Now
Terry.
you're running too.
Yeah, totally. Well, I've got Terry and Terry's wife Sarah. She's also a big part of it, and my wife Carly as well has been a massive help. So. Yeah, we just kind of we came together with the course. We wanted it to be, the goal of the race is to to have, you can show up and you can ride any bike. So like something that I always really liked when I was bike racing is when you would go pre-ride a race course and it would be a ride that you would do.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you're not like even just the course would be like, it'd be like you and I go for a ride and be awesome to go do that course.
Yep.
So that was kind of what we were thinking. We're like, okay, how do we put together a course that people would want to just go do and ride? So you could be riding, you could be riding your 180 mil bike, or you could ride, like a 120 mil XC bike. So that's kind of how we designed the course. Definitely on the more technical side for cross country, but I don't know.
Squamish.
Yeah, we live in Squamish, right? And I think it's what the people want. And seeing this race last weekend or 2 days ago in Whistler, it was super technical and it was packed. There was like 300 racers, totally sold out.
Yeah,
people were into it. And there was all sorts of all the shaved legs and the spandex at the front on these pinner little bikes, and then, backpacks and baggies and people on like really big bikes. So, anyways, yeah, that's how we kind of designed the course as to make it a fun ride, and then we've just kind of gone for it. It's registration's been pretty good. We still have some spots available.
Fantastic. We'll put a link in the show notes.
Totally. Yeah.
Interested in signing up?
Come do it. And something else that I always really enjoyed is a really fun after party. Especially as I got into my more adult years, I always enjoyed a good bike race party. So we're trying to bring back that. So we've got the backyard booked out in Valley Cliff.
Okay.
If you've ever been there, it's a great spot. Yeah. We've got some live music. Got this guy named 𝗵𝗶𝗽 Josh doing live PA and just like super funky and. So it should be.
Sounds like such a good time.
Yeah, I'm hoping so.
Yeah, awesome. You kind of answered one of the questions I wanted to ask, but I guess drawing on your experience trying out, the 𝗬𝗏 for so many years and then so many other races, it's curious, what kind of vibe are you hoping to create for the participants?
Yeah, totally. Well, that's a great question. Well, we definitely want it to be like everyone's welcome. And, I think we've definitely made the course challenging, like a technical challenging course. So, the course is what it is this year. And maybe we need to revisit it a little bit because it's definitely it's like intermediate to experience, I'd say. Like,
what are some of the highlights for those listening? You don't have to reel off the whole course, but there's a few good trails in there.
Yeah, what do we have? Well, we have Rupert in there, which I think is going to be great. That's definitely pushing kind of the boundaries of cross country. We've got the lower lumbar. I don't know if you've ridden that.
Yeah,
but it's like
that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's so great. Yeah, it's such a nice big climb up there. We've got Angry M, which is going to be our time descent.
Okay, awesome.
So that's a fairly technical trail, and then the last trail is somewhere over there. Well, actually, sorry, I should say we're doing Powerhouse Plunge, which a lot of people don't ride anymore, but it's like a little bit of a tip of our hat to the test medal because the plunge was like the big descent,
right? Okay.
In the test, which is kind of funny looking back.
That's a great one. The rock over there is a little bit different to some of the other rocks.
Oh, totally, yeah. And you go in there and you can't even see the entrance to the plunge anymore because everyone just goes right into the power hood connector.
Okay, yeah.
So the plunge the first half, and then we're gonna ride somewhere over there, which is a great trail. But yeah, it's a technical trail.
What an awesome course. It must have been hard to choose. We've just got so many good options around here.
It was really endless here. Hey?
Yeah,
totally. So yeah, anyways, we definitely wanted it to be we want it to be hard, and we want to have like a really really fun jam and after party. That's big to us as well. We've got some kind of like, I don't know if entertainment is the right word, but we've got some like stoke out on the course from some of our sponsors. Yeah, so there's gonna be like an amped up cheer section, which would be pretty fun. I don't want to give too much away. And we have a pump and feed station as well. Yeah.
Fantastic. It sounds like you've got all the boxes ticked.
Yeah, hopefully.
That's great. If you could give those racing one piece of advice, what would your biggest bit of advice be?
Ooh. One piece of advice. What's it going to be? Yeah, make sure you're eating and drinking. Yeah. Because people forget.
Yeah, the simple stuff.
People forget to eat and they forget to drink, and it catches up to them later, right? You got to be eating and you got to be drinking, and you got to know. I always like to, like, when I was coaching athletes, we'd always work on like their race nutrition plan, right? And even as simple as, even if you're a weekend warrior, right? Like you should be eating in the race the things you'd normally eat when you ride.
Totally.
Right? Just so you know they're not going to upset your stomach.
So yeah, that's a good point. I guess if you're not usually taking lots of snacks out for a regular ride, like totally starting to eat while you're riding and figuring out what food works, what doesn't.
Totally. Yeah. It'd be like, like I always use the analogy, not that I've ever done a marathon, but like you would never want to do a marathon in brand new running shoes.
Yes.
Right.
Totally.
It's just like you want to make sure.
So you don't want to be eating all these gels that you've never tried before.
Totally. Like yeah. So yeah, I guess that would be probably the one piece of advice, if I could give just one.
Great advice. And if you were a betting man, who's going to come in top 3?
Ooh, okay. Yeah, that is. So we got some heavy hitters, which is cool. We're really, really psyched about that. So we've got, on the women's side, we've got Katarina Nash. She's Czech. She resides in California, though. She spends a lot of time here in Squamish, though. But she's like, you name it, she's done it. Like Olympics, like World Cup wins, like cyclocross World Cup wins. Like she's a total champ. Yeah, so she's racing, which is really cool. So,
fantastic.
And then I think we have Sonia Looney, so she's still racing pro, and then a few other fast locals. So that's on the women's side. And then on the men's side, we've got 𝗳𝗽𝗆𝗺𝗃, who's same thing. He's, 3 Olympics. He's won a World Cup. He's like, he's about as decorated as it gets when it comes to cross country racing. So that's really cool. We got him racing. He won the back 40 last weekend. So
fantastic.
he's on fire.
Yeah.
We've got another local guy named 𝗀𝗵𝗀𝗵, who, I don't know if you know Sean, but
I'm not familiar
so
with
Sean is born and raised in Squamish, but he just came off his World Cup career, but he's still racing. So he's now focusing on like more marathon races.
Okay, great.
So he's flying. And then we've got another racer named Carter Newstag, who's from Fernie, and same thing. He's like, full pro, racing full time. So I think those guys will be going toe to toe.
Yeah.
It'll be cool.
Oh man, that's so awesome to hear that you've attracted like top racers from all around the world.
Yeah, that's like,
and also got space for just everyday guys and girls as well.
Totally. Yeah. The everydays and guys. Like, of course, it's nice to have the fast pros. I think that's awesome. But it's like, It's more the everyday humans that, they make the race, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I guess it takes everyone. Yeah. Fantastic, man. Well, I'm super psyched for your race.
Thanks,
Definitely
Jake.
recommend everyone goes and checks it out. You've got some good interviews up on the Instagram page. Some of the people you mentioned there, some of the races. So
Yeah.
if you want to get psyched and learn a little bit more about it, go check out the Haulback on Instagram.
Yeah, right on.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for listening. If you're enjoying the podcast, don't forget to give it a like, give it a subscribe. And if you'd like to know more about my journey in mountain biking and my background as a mountain bike coach, check out episode number 29, where I dive a little bit deeper into that. Now let's get right back to the podcast. We'd love to talk here a little bit about mindset and riding bikes for you. It's a topic very close to my heart, and I know everyone's kind of got a different take on it or some different tools. So let's dive into that.
Okay.
I'm curious, do you have any mental tools or any mental techniques that you've used for mountain biking over the years?
Yeah, I do. And a couple of them I still use. When I was a kid, a junior racer, I had a coach, and her name still is Peg Hill. And I haven't talked to Peg for a long time, but she was like a Vancouver coach, and she was a former pro bike racer, and she wrote a book called Sports Psychology for Cyclists, and she wrote it with a sports psychologist named Saul Miller, Dr. Saul Miller. Anyways, it's a book all about sports psychology for cyclists. Yeah, and I still have it, and I'll lend it out to people when they want to read it. And something that always stuck with me was, if you don't like what you're watching, change the channel. And it's so simple, right? Like, you're watching TV, and we don't really change channels too much anymore because I think it's Netflix, but
Scroll on, yeah.
Yeah, scroll on, right? Like, if you don't like what's going on in your mind, change the channel, right? Like, you're in control, right? So you're feeling like you're hurting, or you're this I'm never gonna end, and those negative thoughts, they really will spiral. So if you don't like it, just change the channel, change the mental perception. So I actually use that. It sounds kind of funny, but even when I'm just riding on my own, I use that a fair amount. But that's one that I've used kind of pretty much. I don't know. I probably read the book when I was 17, so I'm 40 now.
That's awesome. Yeah. How it stuck with you.
Yeah.
And so cool that you're exposed to that knowledge at such a young age.
Totally.
Because I know, psychology in cycling or in mountain biking, sometimes it isn't super easy to find.
No.
And there's not a whole lot of psychologists specifically working with cyclists.
Yeah.
Super cool.
There should be. Yeah. I listened to, I was out on a ride last week, and I was listening, getting a little familiar with your podcast, and listening to Greg Mack, who's a friend of mine, and I could listen to him talk all day long. And I really enjoyed your guys' talk. But yeah, just listening to him, and that guy would be, what an asset to athletes. It sounds like he is talking to some athletes.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, there was some things I was like, oh, yeah, right, okay, I got to use that.
Yeah, it's been really cool since we did that interview last summer.
What was that, last summer?
Yeah, okay. Quite a few people reached out to me and said, great introduction to Greg. I'm now working with him, either for racing or with personal life stuff, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
he's a great resource to the community.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Greg McDonald, if anyone wants to listen to that episode, it's another good one.
Yeah.
But getting back to this one, I really love that analogy there of if you don't like it, change the channel.
Totally.
What are some of the channels you do like watching when you're on a big sufferfest?
Well, recently, I'd say in the last number of years, I listen to a lot of podcasts when I'm, funny enough, when I'm riding. Like I said, I was just doing a big climb in town here and listening to you and Greg speak. What do I?
Yeah, do you have any, say if you're feeling some negative thoughts and you're like, hey, this isn't helping me, this isn't serving me, do you have any affirmations or anything you'll say to yourself to perhaps replace those thoughts?
Yeah, I used to I don't really do it anymore, but I always had some words each year that I would race. I'd always have some my power words,
right? Yeah,
that I would say. It sounds like, and they're always totally cheesy, you're powerful, you're strong, you got this, and you just say them. One thing I do use, and I actually caught myself saying it this past weekend, which is funny as I get back into racing, like, whoa, the World Cup of the 40-year-olds, is I use the word smooth a lot. Yeah. And I don't use it when I'm riding, but I know when I'm racing, you get tense, you get like, right, you gripping the bars and like you're taking bad lines and just like smooth. And it's just like that cue to just like drop your shoulders and just like relax. So I definitely caught myself saying that, which is good, which is great, right? Yeah. I said that to myself for a long time. Yeah.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah. And it's amazing, isn't it? How just like that one simple word can change so much in like if you know, how you breathe in, how you're standing on the bike, how far ahead you're looking. All
totally. Yeah. And like that one word can mean so much to one person, right?
Yeah.
And each person, like, I think all people should have something like that.
Yeah. Some kind of power word to kind of pull out when you need it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome, man. I love that. You've obviously had some good mentors over the years and had the chance to kind of rub shoulders with some of the best in the business. I'm curious, is there any like one bit of advice that sticks out that you got from a mentor or someone else you were racing with?
Okay. Yeah. I had a lot of great mentors. Who did I? Yeah, a lot of guys I looked up to, like when I was a kid, like I say kid, but when I was a teenager, so like, like the late 90s, the early 2000s, like cross country, it was like Canada was really, really strong. Like we had riders like, Jeff Kabush, who won this weekend, man, that guy's been around forever. It's incredible. So like he was racing, but he was a young guy, but then there'd be like Andreas Hessler and Seamus McGrath, and like Ryder Hesseldahl was a mountain biker then, and Chris Shepherd, and Chris Shepherd's a close friend of mine. So yeah, I really looked up to those guys, and then being able to, like when I became older, like I ended up racing on some teams with those guys, and that was really cool for me, just to be able to ride with them and like like see how they trained and get their experience and. Like hearing about travel, like one thing that my buddy Chris always said whenever we were flying, his move, and I started doing it, is like pay the little bit extra money to go to the lounge.
Right.
So especially if you have a layover and when you're flying somewhere, pay the like business class lounges, like they're kind of expensive for like a dirtbag mountain.
Definitely.
Like, I think they were like $100, or I can't even remember what they cost now, but yeah, that was something I always did, and I'd go and I'd put my feet up and I'd have like a proper sleep, and
good one. So really prioritizing that self-care before the race.
Totally. Yeah. But yeah, I'd say all those guys were, and some of those guys have become really good friends of mine, which is really cool to like, idol these guys as a young person, and then become buddies with them. Just watching, right? I think that's the best.
That's really cool. Hey, there's that old saying, "Success leaves clues." I guess you were kind of really modeling that.
I like that. Success leaves clues. Yeah.
So when it comes to setting goals, whether that be in a race environment or just from a personal fitness level or riding level, how do you go about setting goals that are achievable but also exciting?
Right. Yeah. I would always set goals. And I remember sometimes being like, trying to learn how to set goals. It can kind of be intimidating, especially like, because I always worried about setting the goal and then not being able to achieve it. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. Right? Kind of fear of failure.
Totally. Yeah. Totally fear of failure. Like goals are so important. But I had like a little, like, I don't know, like I called it my little race Bible, but like my little training journal where I would, set my goals for the year. And a lot of that was based on, like, for me, it was based on like what races I was going to be doing. So, we'd try to like plan out the whole race calendar for the year, and then have those like important, those important races, the like A races and B races and the C races. But yeah, the goals were really important. And yeah, there's definitely some I know I set that I never achieved.
Okay.
And I still think of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And looking back on those, if you were to perhaps be able to go back in time and do it different, is there anything you'd do different within that process next time?
Yeah. Yeah. What would I do? Yeah, I took a small stint off from racing, like when I was kind of probably in my early 20s. Maybe I think I took maybe 3 years off of racing,
Okay.
like entirely. Like I didn't ride, and I think I just got a little burnt out. And I look back at that, and and like in your like in a like a cyclist, like those are pretty formative years. Like like
Totally.
all your years when you're young are very formative, but your early 20s are like super formative. So like I think if I could go back, it would have been like older me talking to me then, being like, no, stick with it. Like maybe just like change the schedule,
Okay. Yeah.
right?
So adjust so that you don't get burnt out, but you could still race.
Totally. Yeah,
Awesome.
for sure. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like it's sport's hard.
Yeah, hard to
Sport's
find that balance, isn't
It
it?
is hard to find that balance, and and people athletes put a lot of pressure on themselves. I know I did that. Own worst enemy. So sometimes just taking a step back and taking a rest can be really important.
Yeah. What are some of the ways you've learned to manage that pressure over the years?
Yeah. Yeah, pressure is a crazy thing. I know, I know for me, I'd always put a lot of pressure on myself, and like, and then a good friend of mine, we raced together for years, and we still ride a lot together. His name's Kevin, and he would always just be like, we're just literally riding bikes, man. Like, just kind of reminding yourself like what you're doing, and you're like, oh yeah, we're just riding bikes around. Like it's not a big deal. Trying to like normalize it. Like this is
Totally.
not a big deal.
Yeah, yeah.
But tough to do, when you put a lot of time and put a lot of effort and like put a lot of money, and maybe you've traveled like halfway across the world. But yeah, the pressure's a tricky one. I know I personally struggled with that. Like I always worry about like not performing.
Right.
Yeah.
And was that like a sense of letting yourself down or letting your sponsors down? Or?
Yeah, I think like just kind of like maybe letting myself down, and people like worrying about what people would think.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy to think that, but it's true though.
It is, but it's so hard not to at the same time, isn't
For
it?
sure. Yeah, you put a lot into it, and sponsors, they've invested money in a spot on a team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tough stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really tough stuff.
And then talk about there, like on race day, obviously whenever we ride a mountain bike, we're taking risks, but on race day, that's perhaps heightened.
Yep.
I'm curious, what's your personal recipe for risk management when it comes to racing?
Yeah. Yeah, I've definitely hurt myself a few times. And yeah, I've had some bad crashes, and I've had some broken bones. But I never like racing cross country. I don't know. It's different. Funny, like I remember I wanted to race downhill when I was a kid. Like this goes with like alpine ski racing, and my mom was like, "No." What do you mean no? She's like, "No, I won't." She wouldn't sign the waiver forms.
Okay.
She wouldn't let me. So I was like, "Oh, okay, well, I guess I'll cross country race." But like it's like you can still really hurt yourself. But
I feel like there's arguments to be had either way, right? Like you're gassed when you get to the downhills and you've got half the travel.
yeah,
Probably more back then.
yeah, I guess so. Yeah, totally. But I didn't really know I had half the trouble. That's it, right? You only know what you know.
That's true.
Yeah, I just like 100 mil and seat up. That's what we did. But I don't know if I ever really had to worry about mitigating that. I know that I would often, the way we would train is we would train like being redlined into really hard technical riding.
Okay.
We would actively do that. So you'd sprint, you do efforts where you would go into really hard riding with your heart rate like at full max.
Right.
So you just be able to learn how to handle it.
Yeah.
So yeah, did a lot of that when I was racing, which I'm sure probably helped.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
But,
like,
yeah, as
I
far
guess, normalizing, exposing yourself to those feelings of what it feels to be like redlining.
Totally, yeah. And then, using words like smooth or relax or whatever, whatever it was at the time, whatever that hot word was for me. But yeah, as far as like mitigation, no, I don't think I really, I did too much, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good training, good technique.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. Yeah, but crashes happen. Like it's a hard sport, and yeah, I've definitely taken my licks, as most people who mountain bike have, right?
Yeah.
It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Right. Yeah. What do you do these days? You've had a crash. Is there anything you'll tell yourself directly after the crash to try and move through what can be a pretty uncomfortable space sometimes?
Yeah, totally. Well, like knock on wood, I've whatever, and this is
Find
wood.
some wood, yeah.
Yeah, I've had a decent run now with no crashes, but yeah, the last big crash I had, I just opened the shop. Well, it was May, so the shop had been open a couple months, and we were up riding Diamond Head, riding some steep trails, and I wasn't feeling great. And I was out the night before, and we went into this really hard trail, and I just wasn't feeling good, and I was struggling down it. Anyways, I ended up going over the handlebars, and I totally shattered my hand and broke my hand, and yeah, that one was like that was a bit of a reality check. I was like, whoa, okay, this is like, I don't know, before when I crashed, I felt like stakes weren't as high, but I'm like trying to run this business and excuse me. So yeah, I think it backed things off a little bit. It took me quite a while to build back up. You know, you get the wind out of your sails.
Yeah,
I'm sure you
totally.
talk about sometimes with your people you're coaching, you know, you build, and you have this big crash and you get back right down. And I think it's normal to not feel very good on your bike afterwards.
Totally, yeah. And what I find so often in myself and my clients is like we have built ourselves up to be really proficient riders. We have that crash and all of a sudden we're way back here. It can be really tough because we want to keep building off where we were, not where we are.
Yep. Yeah, for sure, right? Finding that flow back on the bike and getting comfortable. And, you know, so I think it's important, like, you know, managing injury obviously is important, but like if you're not injured, it's just like you're back on the bike and just get riding again and just go ride mellow trails and, you know, enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's always what I've done, at least, right? Like get back riding as soon as you can and just slowly build yourself back up. And I would always ride by myself after I had a big crash, if I had a big crash. Because, you know, I found sometimes when you're riding with friends, or I guess it depends on your friend group, but at least mine, we were always pushing one another. So I sometimes found that tough to like not be super confident, but then to be riding with people who are going fast and charging hard. So I'd always take time on my own to ride.
Totally, yeah. Take that time to go out at your own pace.
Totally.
Really feeling into how your body's feeling on the bike.
Yeah.
Wise advice, I love that. Now you've got something called the poor man's workout. Can you tell us what that is?
The poor man's workout. You heard about that? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's I'd like to say it's famous, but anyone who comes to spin class like has probably done it before. So basically, it comes from a good friend of mine named 𝗬𝗃𝗺𝗺, and you know he raced for a long time, raced at a high level, and it was a workout that I basically stole it from him. And I shouldn't say stole.
All good ideas have been stolen somewhere.
He was helping me with my training, and he was kind of had finished racing, and I was still like my last few years of racing. And I wouldn't say he was coaching me but he was maybe more mentoring, I guess would be a good way. And we I'd talk about workouts and bounce ideas, and he introduced this workout to me called the poor man's workout. And holy, if I could swear, I'd swear right now, but holy shoot, this is like it doesn't even seem achievable. And basically his whole thing was he raced on the national team, and he never lived in Victoria. So a lot of the national team riders would live in Victoria, and the National Training Center was there, and they had access to the national team coach, and they'd train together, and they would do something called moto pacing, so where they would ride behind a motorbike or a moped. Okay. And they'd ride at like tempo pace, really fast legs. So what it does is it just creates a lot of speed, and they would do this before big events, and to create really fast legs at speed. And anyway, so Chris kind of designed this workout on his own that he called the poor man's workout, because he would do it. He lived in Kamloops, and he would do this workout by himself, and it was like really is done at 80% and whatever of heart rate or wattage or whatever the metric you're using, and it would be there was always two parts to it. So the first half was like really slow RPM, but at the same thing at that 80% output for whatever the allotted time was, call it 2 minutes.
Right.
And then directly after, so about 60 RPM, so super slow. And then he would double his cadence and try to go to 120 RPM. So it's obviously much easier gear, but double the cadence and still working at that 80% for that allotted time. And I'd have to look back. I have it in my one of my in my race training journal somewhere. But it was like it was so hard. It was so hard. And it was like 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes. I think the longest one was 7 minutes, 7 minutes, and it was a pyramid, so it would go up and then it would come back down. Anyways, I really liked it and it was so hard. So I took the workout and I modified it, and we would do it, we have an indoor cycling studio at my shop, and so in the winter we do the poor man's workout. And I don't know, Chris is a good buddy of mine, and he's a total character, and he like the way he would tell me, he was just this like poor guy by himself in Kamloops doing this workout. And like, I always thought of like, I don't know if you've seen Rocky, right? Where he fights the Russian, like Rocky's like running around the house, chopping wood and running through snow, and the Russian's in the lab. That's what it always made me think of. So so we do the poor man's workout. We get to do it. We only do it twice though. We do it once in the fall, and then we do it once in the winter. And it's always well received. It's that workout that you start and like, you're like, how the hell am I going to finish that? And then everyone does. And it's like, it's incredible. It's like that mind over matter. Like you would love it. Cause it's like, it's so amazing what like people can do. Right. And I always like to remind people of like, the efforts in it, they get longer and they can't do it. But then miraculously, when it's the last one, everyone can do it. You're like, oh, you just like, why can you do it? It's like, cause it's the last one, so you can just do it. So it's that mind over matter thing. Yeah, it's cool. I love that. You know about that workout.
Yeah, it's a super interesting point. You're getting me all excited. I want to come and try it now. Yeah. When does the spin class open back up?
So we run classes. We've been kind of running them from like Thanksgiving. Usually we open back up until about mid-March, like when kids go out for spring break. That was kind of our window. So we're going to change things up a little bit this fall. I'm still working through some of the details, but one way or another, we're going to be having some indoor cycling.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm excited to come along. You're well versed in getting the best out of yourself, whether you're at a spin class or out on the bike between the tape. What are some of the ways that you squeeze the best out of every person in the room when you're there coaching?
Well, I turn my music up super loud, and I really like to I love loud music, and I love like banging like electronic music. So music is really important to me. I always make sure that the music I've chosen, like all the tracks or the music I've chosen, I've like thought about before. So I'll even do that with like a workout. I'll like choose something that I know is going to get me pumped up. So that's one way in, getting out of people. And then I really enjoy when people are loud, kind of that, I don't know, I hate to say like drill sergeant, kind of like, not like belittling people, but like the drill sergeant that's like in your face, like, come on, like you can, like, I always like was so fired up in races where you'd be going through like, the feed station. It's just like chaos and it's loud and it's just like, I don't know. I'd always really, really vibe off that. So yeah, that's usually what I do.
Really up in the energy.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. So I just try to make it as energetic as possible for people.
That sounds great.
And, people, I don't know, I think people seem to like it, and I don't know. I always say like, if you don't like it loud, then don't come. There's other classes you can come to. Yeah. There's definitely some quieter like coaches, and that's their thing. So.
Yeah, that's good. Know your space.
Yeah.
And I know you also kind of pull out some random motivational stories and talk about your days on the race course. Yeah, have you got a favorite story you'd like to tell? The listeners.
Yeah, totally.
Perhaps they're on a big climb stuff.
No. This is my favorite one, and I love it. So, and it involves a swear word. So just heads up. I know. Okay, so I went to Europe to do this race called the дз𝗹𝗆𝗆𝗆. So there's like a 8-day stage race through the Alps, and it was a really hard race. It was a super, super challenging race. Really long days. Like, like we're mountain biking, and like most of the days were like upwards of like 100K, and we'd be like, over 3,000 meters of climbing. Just big, long, hard days. And there's a bunch of like really, really fast Europeans there. But you race as a team of two. So you got like you and then some other human you're racing with. And I was racing with this guy who's kind of become a good buddy of mine, but he's this Austrian guy named Guido. And we raced, he raced for like the European team, and I raced for the Canadian team of our sponsor. So we weren't actually teammates, but we raced like for Rocky Mountain. So we were like kind of teammates. But anyways, we came together, and I went and traveled with the European Rocky team, which was really cool. So he was a fit dude, and he was definitely stronger than I was in this race. But you got to stay together, and he was just dragging me along, and I've just like, yeah, I was totally just a passenger and holding on and a little, I don't know, yeah, maybe a little out of my element. But anyways.
So within this race, you've got to follow each other.
Yeah, you got to be together the whole
wow.
time. You start together, you finish together. You're racing everyone else, teams of two. So,
Super cool.
you know, like, yeah, it's definitely a different dynamic because like if you flat, your teammate flats, right? If you have a bonk or you have a tough day, like your teammate has a tough day, like you got to be together. So anyway, so we get to Italy, and I don't know if you've seen the Dolomites before.
Only on Instagram.
Oh my God. Like the most, I'd never seen the Dolomites before. Like they don't look real. They're amazing. There's like the most beautiful mountains you've ever seen. They're just like raw. And I remember we'd been riding for 3 hours, 4 hours. There's no one in front of us. There's no one behind us. And Guido's just drilling it. And I'm like in behind him, just like holding on, just like a shell. And we come into this like meadow, and then like, it's like the Dolomites just like erupt out of like they're just in the sky. And I was like, whoa. And like, I'm behind Guido and he looks back, and it literally I'd been looking at them for like 10 seconds. And like I said, keep in mind, we've been racing for hours, like hours, probably 3 hours, probably still had 2 or 3 more hours of racing to go. No one in front of us, no one's behind us. And I'm like looking, I'm like hanging up in this climb, and I'm like looking over at the Dolomites, just like, wow, these, like thinking to myself, wow, this is like really, really cool, but suffering. And Guido like looks back, and he's just like spitting mad, and he's like, he's Austrian as well. He's like, stop looking at the fucking mountains and race your bikes. And I was like, you asshole. Okay, here we go. Like, and down there. Fuck, here we go again. It's just, into the Dolomites. Didn't even get to look at them. That's always my favorite. Stop looking at the mountains.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, just as Austrian. He's like spitting mad at me. Yeah, he's an intense dude. But he's a really good bike racer, and we got along. We forged a really good friendship from that race.
Oh man, what an awesome story. It's such a good lesson in that too, isn't it? Like when you're in between the tape, it's like, what am I doing now? Where am I?
I guess so. Yeah, like I just could have thought, man, like
maybe take a moment.
Just take a moment, but yeah, no, not into it. Good reminder. Yeah, we're there to race. We're there to race, not to look at the mountains, I guess. But yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's a fantastic story. I love it. I'm gonna start winding down here.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hit you with a deep question to finish off.
Okay.
If you didn't enter the world of mountain biking, where would you be today?
If I didn't enter the world of mountain biking, yeah, where would I be? So I think I probably would be into music.
Music. Great. Do you play any instruments?
No, I don't play any. So I am, I guess, more of like, I guess I could say a hobby DJ now.
Okay, great.
I just do it for fun, but I used to, my little stint, well, I always loved music when I was young, and I loved electronic music. And when my little stint, I said I stopped racing for a bit, I bought turntables and I started DJing when I was young. And then it ended up being, that was my job all through university. Is pretty much like how I lived during university, was just DJing, lots of club nights and, raves and all sorts of stuff. And then some weddings. And then I got back into bike racing, and it was like, yeah, it's not really not really conducive to
maybe the late nights.
Oh, totally. Yeah, they don't go together. But I've always kind of kept my hand in it, and I still love it. And I got my gear at home, and I sometimes will play fun events for friends and things like that. I really, really love music, and I never really got into I have a lot of friends that are full-time DJs and producers and stuff, and I really envy that. I think that's so cool. So I think I probably would have gone that way.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a kind of a crazy lifestyle though.
Awesome. Two different sides of a coin, hey?
Yeah.
Super cool to hear that you've had that other really strong hobby throughout your career as well. I'm curious, has that helped perhaps the times when you have been down and out, you can't ride your mountain bike? Have you lent back on DJing?
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I go through waves a little bit. At home I still have all my stuff in the room, and I'll go through waves of being really motivated to play music at home and work on mixes, and then sometimes I won't touch my gear for a little while. It's definitely always been there for me. I'd spent COVID when everyone was home doing whatever. I was DJing a ton at home. It was really fun. I really kind of rekindled my my love of that. but yeah, how I bought turntables is when I was like, well, I don't know. I remember I sold a bike actually. I sold a bike to some guy in Ontario, and then I bought like turntables and a mixer and a bunch of records.
Fantastic, dude. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, totally.
There we go, the things you learn.
Yeah.
This has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Jake. It's nice to chat.
You're welcome, man. I feel like we've talked about so many different things. If you could send the listeners away with just one thing to remember from this conversation, what would it be?
Ooh. Yeah, I think similar to what you were saying about, when you're working with your clients and you're saying, like about building up, like that progression piece. We didn't really get into it, but like it sparked my interest, and I'm sorry, I should have asked a little bit more about that. But
it's great. Tell me about what does progression mean for you, or perhaps some of the clients you're coaching?
Yeah, well, I guess progression can mean so many things, but I don't know, you think of mountain biking and where we live, it's such a technical sport, right? So progressing, I was checking out your website, and I just feel like I created like a little bit of a dialogue of like what you're saying to your clients, right? Of like them like progressing into like a rock roll. And I think in our town it's just like everyone's like how rad you can get and like how fast you can ride these trails. And I know kids really get onto that, but it's like, really progressing, riding simple terrain really well is way more important than riding gnarly terrain horribly.
Totally. Yeah.
It's cool,
but
it's not like
you agree with that perspective from like your rich racing perspective and that kind of thing.
Totally.
Yeah. I'm always thinking about like how can we minimize the terrain so that we can maximize the skill. And then once we've got that, we can go and do mountain bike races and ride all kinds of things.
Totally.
If we go the other way around, it usually doesn't end that well.
No, totally. Yeah. So, I think like progression is important, and, riding moderate terrain really, really well and being dialed on that is like, arguably more important than riding really, really hard terrain, not very well and potentially hurting yourself. But I guess some people like scaring themselves as part of one of it. Yeah.
Totally, man. That's such wise advice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Do you have any industry partners or sponsors you wanted to mention? I know you're an ibis distributor.
Yeah. We sell ibis at the shop. So a California brand. And yeah, it's been we started selling ibis last year, so the brand was new to me, and I've been really, really pumped with their bikes. That's really cool. We go back to the Haulback for a second. So we got One Up as one of the title sponsors, One Up Components.
Great.
And then also 7 Mesh Cycling Apparel. So they've been awesome to work with, and they've been a big part of getting the race up and going. I don't know. We got lots of stuff, and I don't want to plug the bike shop. But yeah, come by, say hi. Yeah.
Awesome. And where can people follow along with your adventures online? Perhaps check out Daytime Cycling, check out the Haulback.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Haulback is just at the Haulback is our kind of Instagram, and thehaulback.com is the website. And then our shop is just at day.time.cycling for all our social media stuff, and just daytimecycling.com. All the info is on there.
Fantastic, dude. Nice and easy.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.
Well, thank you so much for the chat.
Yeah, man, this has been great.
Look forward to getting a ride in when your hips a little bit better.
Totally. I had full disclosure for everyone. We were going to go ride today, and I was really psyched for it. And I I think I said earlier, I smoked a tree, so I had to say, I'm sorry, Jake, I can't go riding. But...
You know what? You did a fantastic job sitting in a chair for an hour.
Thanks, man.
Awesome, dude. Thanks so much.
Yeah, right then. Cheers.
What's up, guys? Just one more thing before you hit the trails. If you enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to subscribe, and don't be a stranger. I'd love to hear from you about any topics or any particular episodes that you enjoyed, and even about any guests that you'd like to hear me have on the show in the future. You can find me on Instagram at _mind_mountain. This podcast, mountain biking, and mindset are all things that are very close to my heart, so I feel super grateful to be able to share these conversations with you. So much love to you all for taking the time to listen. I'll see you next time.